Imagine you're sitting at this like really small, sun-drenched cafe in Madrid. Or, maybe it is Tokyo or Berlin or Buenos
Yeah,
Aires.
that sounds amazing right about now.
Right. It is the dream. So the waiter walks up to your table and asks you a totally standard, completely predictable question.
Something you have heard 100 times.
Exactly. And here is the truly infuriating part. You know the words. I mean, you have an impressive streak on your language apps.
You have done the flashcards.
You have diligently studied everything. You have listened to dozens of audiobooks, but instead of just answering the waiter, your eyes just kind of glaze over.
Yeah, the panic sets in.
It does. A tiny UN interpretation booth basically opens up inside your brain, and you just sit there in this agonizing silence.
All while secretly translating 4 different sentences back and forth.
Yes. And the waiter is just standing there staring at you. It is awful.
It really is a uniquely paralyzing kind of panic, you know? Your brain is essentially doing the cognitive equivalent of running a marathon just to order a cup of coffee.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we are speaking directly to you, the learner who is currently stuck in that exact cafe scenario.
You are trapped at the intermediate plateau.
Exactly. You have all the knowledge, but the moment you step into a spontaneous human conversation, you just freeze.
It is a very common place to get stuck.
It really is. So today we are tearing down that UN interpretation booth in your head. Our mission is to figure out exactly why the brain does this.
And, more importantly, how to break free from what we call the exhausting translation trap.
We are going to completely deconstruct the mechanics of second language processing today.
Yeah, we will look at the actual neuroscience of how your brain physically paves pathways for new words.
We are also looking at the really vital difference between just knowing vocabulary and actually activating it.
We are going to dive incredibly deeply into a really fascinating concept called the emotion connector.
Which, as we will see, is basically a way to hack your brain's evolutionary biology. It makes the language stick permanently.
It is a total game changer.
It really is. So let us start with that UN interpreter in your head, because understanding the mechanics of this trap is really the first step to dismantling it.
Right.
When you are asked a question in a foreign language, if you are a translating learner, you aren't just having a normal conversation.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You are executing a highly complex 4-step operation.
Let us break down exactly what that UN interpreter is doing while the poor waiter is waiting for your answer.
Okay, so step 1. You hear the target language. Let us just say it is English for our purposes today.
Okay, so you hear the English.
Right, and you have to decode it. Then comes step 2. You take that English phrase and you actively translate it back into your native language.
Which already feels like an extra step.
It is. But then, step 3, you formulate your response. But you are still doing it in your native language.
So you aren't even thinking in English yet.
Exactly. And finally, step 4, you take that native language response and you painstakingly translate it back into English before you finally open your mouth to speak.
Wow. 4 distinct, really heavy-duty cognitive steps just to say, I will have a latte.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
The mental energy required for that is just staggering. It is really no wonder that intermediate learners describe feeling physically exhausted after just a 30-minute conversation.
Well, it is literally because you are burning massive amounts of glucose
Really?
just from thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's total energy anyway. So when you are running that 4-step translation protocol, it goes into overdrive.
Which part of the brain is doing all that heavy lifting?
It is mostly the prefrontal cortex. That is the area responsible for complex decision-making and translation. It is just working incredibly hard.
So it is just draining your batteries.
Exactly. When you look at fluid, native-level communication, it should not be 4 steps. It should only be 2.
Understand the input and respond to the input.
Right. That middleman, the native language, it has to be completely eliminated. But here's what drives people crazy. I mean, a lot of intermediate learners, like B1 or even B2 level speakers, They actually know the vocabulary.
Oh, for sure.
If you handed them a multiple choice test, they would ace it completely.
They absolutely would.
So why does the brain insist on hiring that UN interpreter if we already possess the English words? It honestly feels like self-sabotage.
It really does feel that way. But from a neurological standpoint, it is actually a misguided attempt at efficiency.
Efficiency. How is 4 steps efficient?
Well, it is an ingrained habit loop. Think
Mm.
back to when you first started learning the language, you did not know the word for water.
Right.
So you had to connect the English word to your native word. There was literally no other bridge available to you.
Oh, I see. So your brain built a pathway based entirely on translation from day one.
Precisely. And fast forward to today, you have a massive vocabulary, but your brain is fundamentally lazy.
It loves the familiar roads.
It loves them. When you are put on the spot, especially if you are like slightly nervous or tired, the brain defaults to that old clunky translation habit.
Because it views it as the safest route.
Exactly. It knows that route works, even if it is slow.
To really visualize this, I love the analogy from the source material. Imagine your brain is this dense, incredibly wild forest.
Right, a complete jungle.
When you first start learning a new language, there is no path whatsoever. You are basically standing at the edge of the woods with a machete,
Just hacking through the thick bushes.
getting tangled in vines, stepping over massive roots. Every single step is incredibly slow, painful, and requires just maximum effort.
That is exactly what learning new vocabulary feels like at first. But if you walk that exact same route through the forest every single day, something happens physically.
The path gets cleared.
Yeah, you trample the bushes. The dirt gets packed down hard. Soon, you have a clear, really obvious dirt path.
And it becomes easier to walk.
Exactly. In neuroscience, this is a physical process called myelination.
Myelination. Okay, what exactly is that?
Every time a nerve impulse travels down a pathway, your brain wraps that neural connection in this fatty substance called myelin.
So it is essentially laying down asphalt over that dirt path in the forest.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Myelin acts as an insulator. The thicker the myelin sheath, the faster and more efficiently the electrical signal travels.
Oh, wow. So if you have spent years translating everything, your translation pathway is basically a heavily myelinated 8-lane superhighway.
You nailed it. And meanwhile, the direct path going from your thought directly to English is completely unpaved.
It is still a jungle.
It is entirely overgrown because you never walk it.
Okay, let us unpack this for a second because
Yeah.
honestly, this sounds incredibly discouraging to hear.
It could sound tough at first, yeah.
If my translation superhighway is already built and it is paved with thick asphalt and the direct English path is a total jungle, how do I start clearing it without completely burning out on day one?
That is the big question.
Like, I feel like I have this massive library in my head. It is just full of English vocabulary. But because I have lost the map, I am just taking the highway back to my native language every single time.
That library analogy, that really gets right to the heart of the problem. Knowing the words, having those books in the library is completely different from activation.
Activation. Yeah.
At the intermediate plateau, your problem is no longer vocabulary acquisition. You really don't need to memorize a list of 500 new verbs right now.
That is actually a relief to hear.
Right. The real problem is that the books you already have are just sitting on a dusty shelf in the dark. They are not primed for active, immediate use.
Okay, so we have to stop trying to just build a bigger library and we need to start taking the books off the shelf.
Exactly.
But how do we actually do that? If I cannot use the translation highway, what is the practical step?
You start by catching yourself in the act of thinking. You use a technique called mental substitution.
Mental substitution. How does that work in practice?
It is about intercepting your daily, mundane thoughts before they solidify. When you have a thought in your native language, you literally pause.
And ask yourself something.
Yes. You ask, how would I express this exact meaning in English?
Okay, let us ground this in reality for the listener. Say I am in my kitchen. It is 7 in the morning. I take a sip of my coffee.
Setting the scene, I like it.
And I think in my native language, I need more sugar. Now, if I am an intermediate learner, I already know the words I need, more, and sugar.
You definitely do.
So I just translate it. But wait, if I do that, am I not just driving right back onto the exact same translation superhighway we were trying to avoid?
That is the crucial distinction right there. If you look for a one-to-one perfect dictionary translation, then yes, you are just reinforcing the bad habit.
So what should I be doing instead?
Mental substitution is not about finding the exact matching words. It is about expressing the core meaning.
Meaning over vocabulary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of a direct literal translation, you push your brain to find alternative routes.
Alternative routes through the forest.
Right. You might think, this coffee isn't sweet enough.
What?
Or I should add some sweetener to this. Or even, this needs a little something extra.
Oh, I see. You force your brain to look around that mental library and pull down 3 completely different books that all accomplish the exact same goal.
Precisely. You are giving your brain options.
But wait, hold on a second. If I am standing in my kitchen and I am already exhausted from waking up and now I'm forcing my brain to find 3 different ways to say I need sugar,
Yeah.
am I not just doing triple the cognitive work? That sounds like it would make the exhaustion so much worse, not better.
In the short term, yes, it absolutely is a workout. Your brain will feel tired.
So why put ourselves through that?
Because what you are doing is building cognitive redundancy.
Yeah.
You are taking that machete and you are clearing 3 new direct paths through the forest all at the same time.
Okay, cognitive redundancy. Why does that matter in a real conversation?
Imagine you are in a high-pressure conversation with a native speaker, and you suddenly completely forget the exact English word for sugar.
My mind just goes totally blank.
Right. If you only have one single path, your brain hits a dead end. The UN interpreter panics, the vault closes, and you just stare blankly at the person.
Ah, the dreaded awkward pause.
Exactly, the awkward pause.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've built that cognitive redundancy, your brain does not panic.
That has backups.
Yes, it instantly reroutes. It says, okay, path A is blocked. No problem. We will just take path B and say sweet instead.
Oh, wow. So you bypass the silence entirely because you have built these backup generators for your vocabulary.
You teach your brain flexibility.
Mm.
You are showing it that language is not a tightrope walk where one wrong step means you fall. It is more like a wide safety net.
I really love that perspective. I want to give the listener a direct challenge based on this right now.
Let's do it.
Pick 3 mundane routines that you do every single day. Things like making breakfast, commuting to work, taking the dog for a walk.
Perfect examples.
I want you to narrate your actions in your head, but double or triple the expressions. So if you are brushing your teeth, do not just think, I am brushing my teeth.
What else should they add?
Add something like, I am cleaning my teeth, and I need to rinse my mouth. Find those alternate routes.
It feels incredibly simplistic at first. You might feel a little silly.
Yeah, you definitely will.
But neurologically, you are repeatedly firing those circuits. You are forcing that myelin to wrap around those direct English connections.
Moving vocabulary from passive storage right into active working memory.
Exactly. You are taking the books off the shelf.
But if I am being totally honest, narrating I am brushing my teeth gets incredibly boring after about 3 days.
Oh, absolutely. It is not sustainable forever.
Because real life is not just a clinical list of physical actions. Real human thought is messy. It is full of opinions and doubts and weird hypotheses.
And that boredom you feel, that is a clear signal that you are ready to transition to the next level.
Which is
the bilingual inner monologue. Labeling objects is really a beginner's game. To actually build fluency, you have to transition to where the messiness lives.
You have to start genuinely thinking in the target language.
Yes, you move from narration to actual thought.
Which is brilliant because it is the ultimate low-pressure environment. If you construct a messy, completely grammatically incorrect hypothesis in your own head,
nobody is there to hear it.
Right. No one is judging you. The language police are not going to kick down your bathroom door because you used the wrong preposition in your own thoughts.
Exactly. It is a completely safe sandbox to play in. Let us look at the stylish jacket scenario from our source material to see how this evolves.
Okay, walk me through it.
Say you are walking down the street and you see someone wearing a really great coat. A beginner would use mental substitution to just label it. They would think, that is a nice jacket.
Which is fine, but a bit basic.
Right. But an intermediate learner needs to push into the complexity of adult thought.
So expanding the resolution of the thought, making it richer.
Yes, you want to mimic real-life mental wanderings. So you push yourself to think, wow, that jacket is really stylish. I wonder where they bought it.
Adding some curiosity to it.
Exactly. Then add a condition. I would love something like that, but maybe in a darker color to match my boots. I should see if I can find it online later.
Oh, look at what is happening there. You are using conditionals. You are expressing preferences. You are predicting future actions.
You're training your brain to handle all the heavy lifting of a real adult conversation, but entirely without the pressure of an audience.
And as you do this daily, the brain's natural laziness actually becomes an advantage, doesn't it?
It really does. The brain is always looking to save calories. That is its main job.
So it realizes that translating is just too much work.
Exactly. It realizes that having a complex thought in your native language and then translating it to English in your inner monologue is just way too expensive energetically.
Because you have been clearing that direct path through the forest.
Right. So the brain just starts defaulting to English directly to save energy.
That is so cool. But to make those new paths truly permanent, we have to talk about the absolute core of our deep dive today. This is the real game changer.
Yes, we need to talk about the emotion connector.
The emotion connector. We are talking about taking this new language and violently tying it to raw, unfiltered human emotion.
To understand why this is so profoundly effective, we have to take a quick detour into evolutionary biology.
Okay, let us get into it.
We need to talk about the amygdala.
The primitive part of the brain, the lizard brain.
Exactly. Deep inside your brain, completely beneath the modern, logical, rational layers of your prefrontal cortex, is the limbic system.
And the amygdala is a key player there.
Yes. The amygdala processes emotional responses. Now, from a pure evolutionary standpoint, the amygdala's primary job is just to keep you alive.
Survival at all costs.
Right. So if an early human touched a hot coal, the physical pain triggered massive emotional distress.
Obviously, it hurts.
And the amygdala basically stamps that memory instantly. It says to the brain, do not ever forget what this hot coal looks like, or we will die.
Wow. So it prioritizes the emotional memory over absolutely everything else.
It fast tracks it right into permanent storage. There's no rehearsal needed.
Now compare that to sitting at a desk, looking at a flashcard that just says, frustrated equals frustrato.
Right. There's absolutely no emotional weight there.
The amygdala does not care about your flashcard.
Not even a little bit. Your logical cortex is trying to memorize it, but it is very shallow processing. The brain sees zero survival value in a flashcard.
So it easily discards the information a week later. It just dumps it.
Exactly. It doesn't deem it important enough to keep.
This actually explains something that has always cracked me up about language learning. It is a universal truth. Beginners always, without fail, remember the swear words instantly.
Oh, every single time. It never fails.
You can teach someone 20 polite, highly useful greetings. Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. They will forget them by lunch.
But you teach them one wildly offensive curse word, and it is locked in the vault forever.
Why is that? Why does the bad words stick?
Because swear words are inherently emotionally charged. When you use them, or even when you just hear them, there is a literal spike of adrenaline.
It feels dangerous or rebellious or just hilarious.
Exactly. The amygdala lights up like a Christmas tree. It grabs that vocabulary word and it sears it into your neural pathways permanently.
So just to be very clear to the listener, we are not suggesting that you just walk around your house screaming obscenities in English all day.
No. Not exclusively, at least.
But we are suggesting you hack that exact biological mechanism to overcome the intermediate plateau.
Yes. You have to stop treating English like an academic subject that you just need to pass a test on.
And start treating it as the actual language of your emotional reality.
Exactly. You have to live in it.
So how do we actually do that in real time? Give me a scenario. Let us say I am at work. I have just spent 2 hours meticulously working on a spreadsheet, and suddenly my computer completely crashes. Everything is gone.
Oh, the worst feeling.
My natural instinct is to scream in my native language. I want to throw the keyboard.
And that is exactly the moment you have to intercept the thought.
Intercept the anger.
Do not express that visceral, red-hot anger in your native language. Express it in English.
So what do I say?
Tell yourself out loud, I cannot believe this is happening. This is so incredibly frustrating. I lost absolutely everything.
You have to truly feel the anger, but force the English words to carry the actual weight of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are essentially tricking your amygdala into thinking that English vocabulary is vital for processing the survival level stress.
That is so clever. You are hijacking your own biology.
It works perfectly. And it works for positive emotions too. It is not just about anger.
Like what? What if things go well?
If you manage to fix that spreadsheet and you recover the data, you need to express that profound relief in English too.
Oh my God, thank goodness. I am so glad that worked out.
Yes. When you tag vocabulary with real joy or anger or surprise or relief, the brain treats it as highly significant data.
It puts a VIP tag on it.
It really does. This is the secret to making words stick without just doing brute force repetition. You fuse the language to your actual emotional life.
Okay, so we have these powerful inner monologues going, and we are emotionally tagging our vocabulary when our computers crash.
It is a great start.
But there is a glaring dependency here. To have these rich, complex, emotional thoughts in English, you need the vocabulary in the first place.
Obviously.
You cannot output what has not been inputted.
Which brings us nicely to the whole ecosystem of language learning. Input.
Right.
The stuff we consume.
You cannot build a complex mental architecture if you are feeding your brain low-quality building materials. The output is entirely dependent on the quality of the input.
And when we look at intermediate learners, they generally fall into two massive traps when it comes to input.
Let us talk about those traps. Trap number 1 is what I call the comfort zone. You are a B1 learner. You can navigate an airport. You can order food, but you are still going home and watching beginner YouTube videos.
Where a teacher holds up an apple, speaks at half speed, and says, "This is an apple."
Exactly. It feels good because you understand 100% of it. It strokes your ego.
But neurologically, absolutely nothing is happening. You are not clearing any new paths in the forest.
You are just doing laps in a little clearing you made 3 years ago.
Exactly. It is a waste of time.
Then there is trap number 2, which is the exact opposite. This is the hubris trap.
The hubris trap.
The learner decides they're going to get really serious. So they open up a dense academic journal on macroeconomic theory. Or they turn on a rapid-fire political debate on the news.
And the result is instant, crushing overwhelm.
They might understand like 10% of the words.
And the brain immediately recognizes that it cannot extract meaning from the noise. Cortisol, which is the stress hormone, spikes.
The learner feels entirely inadequate.
And they close the book, completely convinced they are just terrible at learning languages.
The pendulum swings from totally bored in the comfort zone to totally panicked in the hubris trap. So where is the middle ground?
The research refers to it as the sweet spot, or, more formally, comprehensible input.
Comprehensible input. That is a big buzzword in language learning.
It is the absolute gold standard for language acquisition. Comprehensible input is content that is just slightly above your current level.
So it pushes you a bit.
Yes. You should comfortably understand about 70 to 80% of the material without needing a dictionary.
Okay, so if I understand 80%, what happens in that remaining 20%?
That 20% is your growth zone. That is where the new vocabulary and the complex grammar structures live.
But if I don't know the words, won't I just get confused?
This is the key. Because you clearly understand the 80% surrounding those unknown words, your brain can naturally deduce the meaning from context.
It plays detective.
Exactly. It doesn't panic. It pieces the puzzle together organically.
This actually translates directly into a very strict rule for reading that was mentioned in the sources.
The 30% rule.
Right. If you pick up a novel or an article, and you do not understand more than 30% of the text on the first page, put it down immediately.
Do not try to heroically push through it. Just drop it.
But wait, why not? I mean, isn't pushing through difficulty how we learn things? No pain, no gain.
Not in this case. If you have to stop every single sentence to look up a word on your phone, you have fundamentally stopped reading.
You are not enjoying the story anymore.
You are no longer absorbing the language or experiencing the narrative. You have turned an organic reading experience into a robotic stop and start decoding exercise.
It completely kills the natural flow.
It really does. Flow is so important because it mimics how we process our native language. We don't read words individually. We read in chunks. We read in rhythms.
Right. So if you constantly break that rhythm to check a dictionary, you are just reinforcing the translation habit again.
You are training your brain to pause and translate rather than to glide and comprehend.
Okay, but we are not totally helpless here. The sources talk about some really cool neurological hacks to make input more comprehensible.
Oh, the subtitle trick. I love this one.
Let us talk about watching movies or shows in English, because there is a brilliantly clever trick regarding subtitles.
A lot of language purists will tell you, turn off the subtitles. You are just using them as a crutch.
Yeah, I have heard that advice so many times.
But the research actually suggests that if you use them strategically, they are a wildly powerful tool for listening comprehension.
The trick is to quickly glance down and read the subtitle just a fraction of a second before the actor actually speaks the line.
Yes. This is a form of cognitive priming.
Cognitive priming. Break that down for us.
Think about how the auditory cortex works. When you hear a stream of foreign sounds, your brain has to simultaneously separate the syllables, recognize the words, and parse the meaning.
Which is a massive cognitive load.
It is huge.
Yeah.
But if I read the text a split second before I hear it,
you are sending a telegraph ahead to the auditory cortex.
Exactly. You are essentially telling your brain, incoming signal. Get ready to hear the phonetic sounds that correspond to these specific words.
Oh, that makes so much sense. By removing the burden of having to guess what the words are, your brain is freed up to focus entirely on how they sound.
You absorb the pronunciation perfectly. You hear the native intonation, the rhythm, and how they blend the words together. It is incredibly efficient.
I'm definitely trying that next time I watch a movie. And when it comes to finding content that actually keeps you in that 70% sweet spot, the advice is almost deceptively simple.
Be entirely selfish.
Yes. Ruthlessly follow your own specific interests.
This is where we see motivation completely override linguistic difficulty.
How so?
Well, if you hate macroeconomics in your native language, trying to read about it in English is going to be pure torture. You will quit in 5 minutes.
But if you are absolutely obsessed with cooking or Formula One racing or, I don't know, vintage synthesizers,
read about that. Listen to podcasts about that.
Because if you desperately want to know how a recipe turns out or what the post-match analysis of your favorite team is, your brain will literally fight through the linguistic friction.
The sheer desire for the knowledge forces the brain to adapt. It forces comprehension. If the content is boring, the brain just checks out the moment it hits an unknown adjective.
Okay, so let us say I find a really fascinating podcast about my favorite hobby. Say, vintage synthesizers. I listen to it. I understand about 70%.
Perfect sweet spot.
Traditionally, the advice I have always heard is brute force repetition. You know, listen to the exact same 5-minute audio clip 10 times in a row until you understand 100% of it.
Yeah, I hear that a lot too. But the research completely upends this idea.
Why is brute force bad?
Brute force repetition is the fastest possible way to kill your motivation. A bored brain simply does not retain information well.
It just glazes over.
When you listen to the same thing 10 times in an hour, your brain simply tunes it out as background noise. It stops actively processing it.
So what do we do instead?
We need to leverage what is called spaced re-exposure.
Spaced re-exposure. How does that differ from traditional spaced repetition, like using flashcards?
Flashcards test isolated, completely out of context words. Spaced re-exposure is about repeatedly exposing your brain to rich contextual input, but allowing significant time to pass in between.
So, how does that look practically? I listened to my synthesizer podcast today and I understand 70%. The traditional method says hit replay right now.
But the spaced re-exposure method says, stop, take your headphones off,
Just walk away.
go live your life, make dinner, go to sleep, then return to that exact same podcast in 3 days.
And then maybe listen to it one more time a week after that.
Exactly. You space out the listening sessions.
But wait, why space it out? If I have an hour of free time to study right now, why not just hammer it in so I do not forget it?
Because you are ignoring the biological reality of how memories are actually formed in the brain.
Oh, this goes back to sleep, doesn't it?
Yes, you need the downtime. During those 3 days while you're making dinner, working, and crucially while you were sleeping, your brain is not idle at all.
What is it doing?
It is quietly running the wiring. It is taking the linguistic patterns you absorbed and consolidating them, moving them from short-term memory into long-term storage.
Through a physical process, right?
Yes, through a process called long-term potentiation.
So my brain is actively learning the podcast while I'm asleep. That feels like cheating.
It is the best kind of cheating.
Yeah.
The neural synapses are literally strengthening while you rest. So when you hit play the second time, 3 days later, your brain is in a completely different state.
It is upgraded.
Exactly. It is in an upgraded state of neurological consolidation. You will naturally jump from understanding 70% to understanding 85%.
Wow. And by the third listen, maybe a week later, comprehension probably feels almost effortless.
It does. And the motivational boost of that is just incredible. You actually get to feel the upgrade happening.
You experience the tangible sensation of your brain getting smarter. It completely shatters that feeling of being stuck on a plateau.
It is deeply encouraging.
Yeah.
But as empowering as it is to consume perfect, curated input and feel yourself understanding it,
We eventually have to face the dragon.
yes, we have to transition to the most daunting part of the entire journey.
Output. Actually opening your mouth and speaking to another living, breathing human being.
It is the terrifying moment of truth. And we really need to validate the fear of sounding stupid here because it is universal.
It is incredibly common for an intermediate learner to read complex novels, understand fast movies, have these rich inner monologues.
But the moment they have to speak to a native speaker, they completely freeze up.
It feels like a betrayal by your own brain. You think, I know all this. I have been studying for 3 years. Why am I stuttering like I just started yesterday?
It is the fundamental difference between theoretical knowledge and practical physical application. Think of the swimming analogy from the source text. You cannot learn how to swim by sitting on a comfortable couch and watching hundreds of hours of Olympic swimmers on YouTube.
You can understand the biomechanics perfectly. You know exactly when to turn your head to breathe.
But until you actually jump into the freezing cold water, feel the physical resistance, and try to coordinate your limbs while holding your breath, you do not know how to swim.
Speaking a language is a deeply physical act.
Absolutely. It requires complex, split-second muscle coordination in your diaphragm, your throat, your tongue, your lips.
All while simultaneously executing real-time cognitive retrieval of vocabulary and grammar.
It's a lot. You have to get in the water.
But jumping straight into a fast-paced, complex debate with a native speaker feels like jumping into the deep end of the ocean during a thunderstorm.
It is too much too soon.
So how do we practice in the shallow end first? The research provides some really excellent solo output techniques. The first one is shadowing.
Shadowing is essentially training the physical muscles of speech without the pressure of generating the thought.
So the basic version is pretty straightforward, right? You put on an audiobook or a podcast, you listen to a native speaker say a sentence, you pause the audio, and you repeat it out loud.
Trying to mimic their exact intonation, rhythm, and accent. That is basic shadowing.
But the evolution of this is advanced shadowing. And frankly, it sounds pretty chaotic.
It is intense. In advanced shadowing, you do not pause the audio at all. You try to echo the speaker in real time, just a fraction of a second behind them, speaking continuously over their voice.
It sounds chaotic and it feels exhausting, but why is it so effective?
It is wildly effective for breaking the translation habit because you literally do not have the time to translate.
Oh, I see. If you stop to analyze a grammar structure.
The speaker on the audio is already 2 sentences ahead of you. You miss it. It completely bypasses your overthinking, anxious prefrontal cortex.
You are forced to just mirror the physical act of continuous speech, letting the rhythm of the language just take over your mouth.
It builds incredible fluency in the mouth muscles.
Yeah. Okay, advanced shadowing I think I can handle. But the next technique, oh man, I cringe just thinking about it.
Becoming your own teacher by recording yourself speaking.
Yes. I think I speak for all of humanity when I say I absolutely despise hearing the sound of my own recorded voice. It genuinely makes my skin crawl.
It is universally uncomfortable for everyone. You hear every single hesitation, every awkward breath.
So why do we have to do it?
Because it is a profoundly necessary act of self-correction. When you are speaking in real time in a normal conversation, you do not actually hear yourself accurately.
Your brain is too busy.
Right. Your brain is dedicating 90% of its power to searching for the next vocabulary word. So it cannot simultaneously monitor your pronunciation or your grammar.
You think you sound fine, but you might be making really obvious errors.
Exactly. But when I hit record, talk for 2 minutes about my day, and then play it back.
You become an objective, third-party observer of your own language.
And you instantly hear the flaws. You realize, oh, wow, I am speaking way too fast. Or I keep dropping the plural "es" off the end of my nouns.
Or I use the filler word 14 times in 2 minutes.
You catch all the little things.
But here is where I usually spiral. I listen back, I hear 20 different mistakes, I realize I sound like a toddler, and I just want to delete the app and never speak English again.
Which is exactly why there's a crucial constraint to this exercise. You cannot try to fix everything.
So what is the rule?
When you listen back to the recording, you are only allowed to pick 3 things to fix. Just 3.
Only 3. Even if I made 30 glaring mistakes.
Even if you made 50 mistakes. If you try to fix your vowel sound, your verb conjugations, your preposition usage, and your pacing all at the exact same time, you will experience total cognitive paralysis.
Your brain will just shut down.
So you pick 3 specific manageable errors. For example, I'm going to slow down my pacing. I'm going to make sure I pronounce the ed on past tense verbs, and I will stop saying
And then what do you do?
Then you hit record again, and you speak about the exact same topic for another 2 minutes, focusing exclusively on those 3 corrections.
I bet the rapid improvement between recording 1 and recording 2 is pretty astonishing.
It is night and day. It builds real confidence because you realize you actually can control the language when you focus your attention.
I love that. It makes the completely unbearable act of listening to yourself actually actionable.
Exactly. Now, another really fun solo output technique is what I like to call the documentary of your life, or the self-talk narrative.
Oh, this involves narrating your actions out loud while you are doing highly automatic physical tasks, right?
Right. So you are in the kitchen making a sandwich, and you speak your inner monologue completely out loud.
Like, okay, let's see what we have in the fridge today. Oh, some cheddar cheese. I need a sharp knife to cut this. Where did I put the mustard?
Exactly like that.
It feels a little ridiculous, though. I mean, if my neighbor hears me, they will definitely think I have lost my mind.
Perhaps they will. But neurologically, it is brilliant. You are combining a highly automatic physical task, like chopping vegetables, or folding laundry, or taking a shower.
Things you can do in your sleep.
Exactly. You combine that with vocal output, and you are building what we call the spontaneous speaking muscle.
Why does the physical task matter?
When your hands are busy doing a task that requires zero complex thought, your brain is entirely free to focus on matching your real-time physical experience with real-time verbal production.
Oh, I get it. You aren't paralyzed by overthinking a grammar rule because you are physically moving. You are just describing reality as it unfolds.
It trains the brain to speak without premeditation. It forces spontaneity.
Okay, so we have armed the listener with this incredible arsenal of tools. They are using the emotion connector to permanently lock in vocabulary.
They're shadowing their favorite podcasts.
They are painfully recording themselves. They are narrating their daily sandwich prep. They are ready.
They are geared up.
But let us be devastatingly real for a second here. Things will inevitably go wrong.
Always. It is part of the process.
What happens when the learner steps out of their kitchen, walks into a real-life meeting or a cafe, and completely, utterly freezes?
The dreaded mental block. This is where we really need to look under the hood at the physical anatomy of a freeze.
Because when you freeze in a conversation, it is rarely because the vocabulary just isn't in your head, right?
Almost never.
Yeah.
It is almost entirely a physiological reaction to anxiety.
So what is physically happening in my brain when the waiter asks me a question and I just stare at him with my mouth half open like a deer in headlights?
Well, when you feel the social pressure of the other person waiting for your response, your brain perceives a threat.
A social threat.
But the brain doesn't distinguish between the social embarrassment of messing up a verb conjugation and the physical threat of a predator jumping out of the bushes.
Wait, really? It reacts the same way.
It initiates a mild fight or flight stress response. The HPA axis activates, and cortisol floods your system.
And what exactly does cortisol do to language?
Cortisol's main job is survival. So it immediately redirects glucose and energy away from the prefrontal cortex, which, if you remember, is where your complex, higher-order language translation happens.
And it sends it where?
It sends it to your extremities to prepare you to literally fight or run away.
Oh, wow.
So the UN interpreter in your head literally throws off their headset and runs out of the booth. The vault door slams completely shut.
You temporarily lose access to the exact vocabulary you were studying perfectly just an hour ago.
Yes, it is biologically inaccessible in that moment.
That perfectly explains the shower phenomenon.
Oh, the shower phenomenon is the best example of this.
You know, when you freeze in a conversation at lunch and you feel like an idiot, and then 3 hours later you were taking a relaxing shower, and the perfect, most eloquent English sentence suddenly pops into your head.
Exactly. Because 3 hours later, the social threat is gone. You are safe in your shower. The cortisol levels have dropped completely back to baseline.
The prefrontal cortex comes back online.
The vault unlocks, and there is the vocabulary word sitting exactly where you left it. It is maddening, but it is purely biological.
So, knowing that this is a biological lockdown, what are actual strategies for surviving the freeze in the moment? How do we keep the vault open?
The first line of defense is a tactical retreat, using what the research calls bridges, or filler phrases.
As bridges. Give me an example.
You need a stockpile of memorized, highly automatic phrases that you can deploy instantly without needing the prefrontal cortex to translate anything.
Phrases like, let me think about that for a moment.
Yes, or, that is a really interesting question. Or even just, how should I put this?
Native speakers use these constantly, don't we? We just do not notice it because it sounds so incredibly natural.
We use them all the time. And these bridges serve two really vital purposes in a second language. Socially, they signal to the other person that you are still engaged.
It tells them, hey, it is still my turn to speak. Don't interrupt me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But neurologically, they're a delay tactic. By speaking a highly automatic phrase that requires absolutely no complex thought, you keep the conversational flow moving.
This prevents the internal panic from escalating.
Right. It keeps the cortisol from completely flooding the system, and it buys your brain those 3 or 4 crucial seconds to rummage through the vault and find the words you actually need.
But what if you deploy the bridge, you buy yourself 5 seconds, and the words still just are not there? The UN interpreter has fully evacuated the building.
It happens.
It happens a lot, especially to highly educated adults. You have these really sophisticated, complex thoughts in your native language, and when you try to translate that complexity directly and fail, you feel incredibly stupid.
This is where your own ego becomes the enemy of fluency. When the bridge fails, you have to swallow your pride and use a tactic called simplifying complex thoughts, or priming the pump.
Priming the pump. Walk me through a scenario of how that works.
Imagine you were in a professional meeting and you want to express this thought. I am currently weighing the long-term career benefits of pursuing a master's degree in structural engineering against the immediate financial stability of accepting a post-graduation employment offer.
Okay, that is a highly complex, nuanced, high resolution thought.
Very complex. If your brain is slightly stressed and you hit a mental block on how to perfectly translate weighing the long-term benefits, you will freeze completely. The whole sentence dies in your throat.
So, how do you simplify it without sounding like you have nothing valuable to say?
You have to drastically reduce the resolution of the idea to its absolute core essence.
Strip it down.
You accept that you cannot paint the Mona Lisa right now, so you draw a stick figure instead. You say, I'm not sure if I should study more or if I should get a job right now.
Study more or get a job. It communicates the exact same fundamental dilemma.
Yes. And here's the magic of priming the pump. Once you successfully communicate that simplified stick figure version out loud, you experience a micro win.
Oh, because you didn't fail. You successfully spoke.
Exactly. The stress response deactivates immediately. Your brain relaxes because you successfully conveyed meaning. And very often, the moment you finish the simple sentence, the vault unlocks.
Because the cortisol drops.
Yes. You suddenly find the vocabulary to add the nuance. You can then follow it up with, because an engineering degree is good for the future, but a job pays me today.
You build the complexity back up, but only after you have primed the pump with the simple version.
Oh.
Just getting started is the key to breaking the freeze.
Just open your mouth and draw the stick figure. The details will follow.
I want to pivot slightly as we near the end of our deep dive today, because surviving a stressful conversation is one thing, but surviving the macro journey of language learning is another beast entirely.
It is a long journey.
We have to address the elephant in the room, the intermediate plateau. This is where you put in the daily work, you shadow, you record yourself, weeks and weeks go by, and you feel like you have made absolutely zero improvement.
The plateau is truly the graveyard of language learners. It is where 80% of people just give up.
Because it is so demoralizing.
But we need to radically reframe how we view this phase. The research is very clear. The plateau is an illusion.
I have to push back on that a bit. It certainly does not feel like an illusion when you are stuck in it for 6 solid months. It feels like hitting a massive brick wall.
I know, it feels like stagnation on the surface. But beneath the surface, your brain is undergoing massive, heavy-duty construction.
Explain that.
Think of it like building a massive skyscraper. For the first few months, the beginner phase, you see the steel beams going up really quickly. Every single day, the building is visibly taller.
You learn colors, numbers, greetings. It is rapid, visible progress.
And then the steel framework is done.
And the building stops getting taller.
Right. And for the next year, from the outside looking in, it looks like absolutely nothing is happening. You think construction has completely stopped.
But why?
Because all the work has moved inside the building. The crews are running the miles of electrical wiring, the complex plumbing, the HVAC systems.
So during the plateau, the brain is running all the internal wiring.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
brain is doing the deeply complex, invisible work of consolidating knowledge. It is moving vocabulary from short-term memory to long-term myelinated storage.
It is building those intricate neural connections that link abstract grammar structures to the emotion connector we talked about earlier.
You cannot measure this progress on a daily vocabulary test. It is invisible, but it is absolutely essential for eventual fluency.
So if you quit during the plateau because you don't feel like you are advancing, you are basically abandoning a fully wired, functional skyscraper just days before they turn on the lights.
That is exactly what you are doing. It is tragic.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. To help our listeners manage their expectations and actually trust that internal wiring process, the research provides a realistic timeline, right?
Yes, it gives us some benchmarks.
If a listener applies these techniques, the mental substitution, the bilingual inner monologue, spaced re-exposure, tying things to the emotion connector, and they do it consistently for just 15 to 30 minutes a day, what does the timeline to actual fluency look like?
Within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent practice, you will experience what we call small wins.
Small wins. What does that feel like?
It is a profoundly exciting moment. It is when you are looking for a word, and the English word naturally pops into your head before your native word does.
Even if it is just for a split second.
Yes, it means the direct path is finally starting to conduct electricity. The jungle is getting cleared.
Okay, and after a couple of months of doing this,
After about 2 months, those small wins become very frequent occurrences. You will find yourself engaging in direct thinking without having to consciously force it.
your bilingual inner monologue just starts leaning heavily toward English.
Especially when you are tired. Your brain is accepting the new efficiency of the direct path.
And what is the ultimate goal?
After 6 months of consistent daily practice, that is when you typically hit the tipping point. You reach a genuine feeling of automaticity.
You are no longer consciously aware that you are speaking a foreign language in every single interaction.
The translation trap is effectively broken. You are simply communicating your thoughts directly to another human being.
But the underlying message here, and this is a drum the research beats continuously, is the absolute non-negotiable necessity of self-compassion.
We truly cannot overstate this. We are so incredibly hard on ourselves when we try to learn a language.
We really are.
But acquiring a second language as an adult is arguably one of the most neurologically complex tasks a human brain can undertake.
You are juggling so many things at once.
You are simultaneously engaging massive memory retrieval, intricate muscle coordination in the vocal tract, high-speed auditory processing, pattern recognition, and social emotional calibration.
It is a monumental cognitive load.
So when you inevitably make a mistake, when you use the wrong past tense, or you totally butcher the pronunciation of a word, or you completely freeze up and have to draw a stick figure,
You cannot beat yourself up over it.
you have to view every single mistake as just a neutral data point. It is just your brain saying, okay, that neural pathway did not quite work. Let us adjust and try a different one next time.
Exactly. You have to actively celebrate the small victories to keep the dopamine flowing. If you understood the punchline of a joke in an English movie today, celebrate it.
If you navigated a coffee order without using the UN interpreter, celebrate it. Be kind to your brain. It is working incredibly hard for you, rewiring itself while you sleep.
We have covered a massive expanse of territory today. Let us do a quick recap of the journey we have taken to dismantle this trap.
It has been a deep dive for sure.
We started by recognizing the sheer glucose-burning exhaustion of the four-step translation trap and how we need to lay asphalt on a new, direct path through the forest using myelination.
We learned how to pull the books off the library shelf and actually activate dormant vocabulary through mental substitution, finding multiple ways to express one meaning to build cognitive redundancy.
We explored the vital importance of the comprehensible input sweet spot, reading and listening at that 70 to 80% level so the brain can flow rather than stop and decode.
We learned why we must use spaced re-exposure to let the brain consolidate patterns naturally during our downtime.
We faced the terrifying necessity of output by embracing solo techniques like advanced shadowing and recording ourselves to become our own objective teachers.
We dissected the actual anatomy of the mental freeze, understanding that cortisol shuts the vault, and we learned how to smash through those blocks by using filler bridges.
And drastically simplifying our thoughts to prime the pump. And perhaps most profoundly, we zeroed in on the emotion connector.
The incredible evolutionary power of tying your target language to deep, primitive emotions in the amygdala to create unbreakable permanent neural bonds.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with. Something for you to really mull over long after this deep dive ends.
What is the thought?
If we accept the premise that language fundamentally shapes how we perceive, categorize, and interact with the world around us, and if we know that connecting raw, human emotion to a new language literally rewires the deep, primitive architecture of your brain,
Which we know it does.
then learning a language isn't just an academic exercise. It isn't just about translating a thought you already have into a different set of phonetic sounds.
So what does this all mean for the listener?
It means that through this process, you are literally building a second parallel version of yourself, a version of yourself that is capable of experiencing joy, expressing profound frustration, and exploring curiosity in an entirely new neurological and cultural landscape.
You aren't just learning to speak differently, you are learning to be differently.
Exactly. So, the provocative question you have to ask yourself as you continue walking through this linguistic forest is, who is that new person going to be?
Wow. Building a second version of yourself. I absolutely love that perspective.
It is powerful. And to the listener, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The next time you are sitting in that cafe and the waiter asks you a question and you feel the panic rising and the UN interpreter warming up the mic,
Just take a breath.
deploy bridge, draw a stick figure. Be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Trust the hidden construction happening deep inside the plateau and keep pushing your brain's incredible evolutionary capacity to adapt.
You have the tools now.
Go clear that path through the forest.